is meant to serve as a decoder ring for all that bootstrap bullshit they keep trying to sell us. That's right. Whenever you hear some well-paid commentator telling folks that the answer to all their problems is just to work harder, what they really saying is, I don't care about your circumstances. Your circumstances don't matter to me. You don't matter to me. Whenever you hear some rich asshole from a think tank go on and on about the virtues of the free market while ignoring those ill-affected by any semblance of a free market, what they're really saying is, as long as I ain't gotta see them, as long as I ain't gotta be them, fuck them. And I'm sorry if that sounds crass, but that's about as accurate a translation as I can give. And this song is about that unfortunate translation. So the next time you turn on your radio or your television or go on the internet and you hear some fool say, let the market sort it out, well then you'll know what it is they really saying. You'll know what it is they really saying.
I do not feel that I was born corrupted, as I do not believe in original sin. However, I have been corrupted by life, by circumstance, and by my own foolishness. These things trouble me the most. I want to be pure, but I fall so short. Corrosion, rust, death, and failure haunt my every breath and step, and yet I live and write while corrosion bites. It shows there's some strength in me. Possibly, maybe, decidedly, I will persist. The end.
Get yourself together before it's too late. Yes, let's get ourselves together before this is too late. It's wonderful to see everybody tonight on this 13th day of November at 9:28 Eastern Standard Time this week. So it's great to see everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Weinstein, and we have a special guest tonight, and it's not David Price, although he'll be with us too. So we've got a lot in store for you. Also, as usual, I would like to ask you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's a good idea because you can get notifications and you won't miss a beat. Also, our Facebook group page. It is a private group, but if you ask for membership, we'll be glad to give it to you as long as you can agree to the rules. The page is continually growing, and we're really proud of it. So we put a lot of work into this. We're hoping that you'll join us. We really, really do appreciate it. So without any further ado, tonight I'm going to pass it over to my co-host David Price, but we also have a very, very, very special guest, and that would be Mark Zuckerman, who is a financial executive who was born in New York. And of course, to his right, our left, is David Price reporting from his bathroom.
Actually, gentlemen, I am live here, and I've not told Brian this. Very important tonight. I talked to the former president, and he has asked me to endorse some products tonight for him, and I will be doing that. So we say we don't monetize the show. We're not. This money will go directly to the Make Donald Trump President Again Fund, which I think would be good for the country.
All right, that seems fair. Mark, it's great to meet you. So you are a financial executive and a longtime friend of David Price. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yes, I guess that's how I got roped into doing this, because we're visiting over the weekend. So yes, I have a lot of experience as a financial executive in public and private industry. So I've worked at New York Stock Exchange listed corporations as a corporate treasurer and as a CFO or controller. I also moonlight as an adjunct professor teaching both accounting and finance.
Excellent, excellent. And who is that man? Are you sitting on the toilet, Dave? Or
Well, yeah, I am.
you actually are? That's incredible.
Any kind of competent skill. What happened, ladies and gentlemen, is this. I only tell Brian just had a problem, and me being the type of person that I am, I agreed to come in and use the bathroom because Brian could not pick up the signal anywhere else. So,
It's echoing slightly.
I understand, but you don't know what the hell you're doing.
No, I know exactly. Notice that Mark isn't echoing, and I'm not echoing, but you are.
Okay, we go shower.
Yeah, we thought it was both microphones in the same room, so that's why Dave moved to another
I'm
room.
going in my shower. As you can see now, there's my underwear. I'm in the shower. We don't have a lot of money, so we hang my underwear in the shower. So we're trying to figure this out. This is what it's like working with Brian, ladies and gentlemen. It's terrible.
See, folks, I just can't seem to catch a break here, but it's all right. But it is wonderful to see our guests. And we haven't had a guest on for a while, but it's really great to have Mark with us tonight. So, Mark, welcome.
You do understand why we don't have guests, right?
We
It's
usually don't
basically
have guests. We have David Price, and
It's you, Brian.
here. But we do have a wonderful audience, and you'll find that out, Mark. They're very interactive with us, and they constantly comment, ask questions, and they're very much a part of this broadcast as we are ourselves. So we do appreciate that. So, Dave, how are you doing?
Well, what I want to do now, I'm going to walk around the apartment building and see what we can find in the apartment building. So we're doing, oh, good Lord. Let me see, Brian, if you lose me, well, no, I'll stay here. Never mind.
No, you're actually very clear. You're
I
just.
know.
Is there an earthquake there in Washington, or no?
No, moving the phone that he's so bad, ladies and gentlemen. I use 3 different computers and an iPad. You should try your phone. It works on your phone. I think he has the KTEL version.
I'm
of
going to
the
have to
computer.
bring me in here because I have to defend myself a bit here. All right.
Okay, you can defend yourself all you want.
All right,
Brian.
Dave. All three of us are here.
We'll start the show the way we normally do.
We'll be serious.
The hell is bothering you? That you're bothered by something. What's bothering you?
What's bothering me? Well, gentlemen, a lot's bothering me. And it's actually been bothering Ronnie and me all week. It started, I believe it was 4 days ago, I came home for my 25-minute lunch. Dave, you're familiar with that kind of thing happening. And
Correct.
I opened the door, and the television was on in the living room. And I kid you not, I was watching no more than 10 seconds. And I walked in on that tirade that Judge Schrader had against the prosecutor. And I literally started getting a headache within, I'd say, a minute or so, because my blood pressure started going up. And I said to Ronnie, I said, I can tell already this thing is rigged. And the entire week, I mean, if you've been following this, gentlemen, it was tough to watch because, as Trevor Noah said, it seems as though he had adopted Kyle Rittenhouse as his son, because it was just hard to watch. It was really, really difficult to watch, and then to watch Kyle Rittenhouse. So I have some clips that I'd like to play, some very short clips, some from Fox News, because I think it's important to show Fox, and a few other things. So if you don't mind, I'm going to show you a short.
Would you guarantee to our viewing on and listening audience that these clips will be more successful than the ones you normally run? Or are they going to be like the
I
ones
make
you
no guarantees. This has been the focus of my week and my ire, and that's basically because of this judge. This judge really bothers me. The man is a sicko, perhaps a psycho. I just there's just something about it. The last time I was, in public prior to the pandemic was a federal court case, and I found that very intense. In fact, I came home with my nose bleeding. My blood pressure was up from that. But this thing here, it makes me have a lack of faith in the judicial system. So I'm going to show you some clips. I want to show you, was it DJ Ugly first? His idea about what's going on, about the crime from Rittenhouse, and a different angle. So, yeah, let's go to that right now, and then we'll make a commentary at the end. This should only last about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, make sure that's on. And here we go.
To find out what is in these white tears. They do so well. We have to find the ingredients for white tears. They work so well.
Oh,
like
God.
white tears.
You gotta call them white tears, really?
Man, let me tell you, every time a white person cries, somebody's found not guilty. That was the worst. That was the worst acting I've seen since Stacey Dash. Are you crazy? That was horrible.
When you saw that video, was that your opinion? Like immediately you thought, well, they're gonna let him off.
Of course, because let's be clear. The right doesn't believe that they believe COVID was a hoax, that Sandy Hook never happened, that the January 6th insurrection was tourist. They believe that, all these things are false, but they believe that performance was real. It really says a lot about the low standards you have to reach. We live in a nation right now where a man who knelt is vilified and a man who killed is glorified. It is insane.
How do you think that's going to play with the jury? I mean, they're watching it live in court.
Well, it's 12 white people in the jury, 11 white people in the jury, right?
Yeah.
Or women, men and women.
Yeah.
I think he looks like their son, their nephew, and their next door neighbor. I think that a white dude crying with a haircut is very sympathetic to any number of people. I think that he is clearly a martyr for the right. And I think that even when he first got arrested, the first thing the chief of police says is, if these people would have been home, this wouldn't happen. Now, if that doesn't have a jaundiced view of this perspective, we have clearly a group of people who believe that whatever you do for your cause is right. And I think that a lot of them sit on the bench and a lot of them sit in juries. They don't exist in a vacuum. They exist, and they constantly do things that let you know that they're going to do whatever they can to tip the scales of justice. I think that...
All right. Let's just take it from there, gentlemen. Okay? I have no problem with D.L. Hughley and what he just said. Agreed 100%. But that's just my opinion. What say you guys?
I'll defer if Mark wants to go first.
Well, I certainly can go first. The thing that stood out for me was that the reference to the jurors. So the jurors do not appear to be a representative group of the place in Wisconsin that is being tried, or the state of Wisconsin. They're all white. And I begin to think, because I didn't realize that that was the case, how did they select a jury like that?
Right.
It
I mean,
just
we have 11 white
doesn't
people
seem
here
like,
already.
again, I don't like the word rigged for the reason that there was a certain person over the past 4-5 years that used that term continually to refer to our electoral process. But it would seem that there's something in the process there that wasn't working the way I would think it should.
Okay. Well, according to constitutional law and legal law, which are kind of the same thing but different, and of course, what we were all taught in civics was you're entitled to a jury, a trial by jury of your peers. Now, that's an interesting concept. Okay. Kyle Rittenhouse is white, I think. Yeah, I think so. And the jury, I think, is white. The judge is white. The attorneys are white. So, that fits if you want white. The problem becomes that is that a jury, Brian and Mark, is that a jury representative of the state? Is it a jury representative of anything? Or does that lead one to question how fair the jury could be? I'm not so concerned about the jury. I'm more concerned about the judge and his behavior. Now, again, I've covered a few trials, and there are two, basically, a few types of judges. And from what I've read, the term sidebar, no, I read not about from the trial. This is one of those judges who feels he's in ultimate control of his courtroom. Now, one of the first things that everybody took on and were upset about was, remember, he denied the prosecution the right to refer to the dead people as victims, right? Well, I have a question for that judge. What the hell are they? So if they're not victims, they went out that night expecting to be shot. Kid whose mother drove him with a deadly weapon there? No. So I think the judge erred. I understand why he does it. He's actually on record as saying, I think that prejudices the jury. Look, that doesn't prejudice. What are you going to call them? The people out for a stroll who died? I don't think so. The other testimony that I think is very damning was the one who survived, and he said, I thought I was going to die. Now, Mr. Rittenhouse, and I use Mr. as pejoratively as I can, look, that crying was horrid. That crying was fake, and I want anyone who doesn't think that it was, look at what he's doing, Brian and Mark. I don't know if you noticed, he's looking over to the jury.
Well, let's look at that right now, if you don't mind, and then we'll get back to this.
I mean, okay. I really think no matter what this trial comes down to, it will be three things. It will be the behavior of the judge in the courtroom, and we'll get to his Asian comments soon.
Yeah, we have that too.
It will be the crying, just as Kavanaugh, captured in that. And then, of course, there'll be the verdict. So let's examine it. Let's try to figure out what the hell he's doing.
Okay.
Go ahead,
so
Brian.
First, we're going to see the crying. I'm going to stop it there because then we have his mother afterwards, and I don't want to rush ahead. Let's just take it to where you were talking about, and then we'll go there. All right? Sounds good.
I was cornered from in front of me, and there were
As the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse nears its end,
That's about enough as much we need there, Dave, I think.
Okay, I would ask anyone in America watching that to answer a simple question now. I'm the first person who says you can't put motives on what people do unless they tell you, and then you don't even know if they're telling you the truth. But I'm going to say something. If that was genuinely crying because of what he, I assume, feared or whatever, he's the worst crier in the history of the world. Did he get coached? That would be my guess. Was his crying coach very good? No. Did he look? Did he look at the Judge Kavanaugh tape? Possibly, because you've seen. I don't know, Brian and Mark, if you've seen the pictures juxtaposed. There's actually a look where they do. It's identical crying. So, what did the jury think about that? Here's what's a little scary. Reporters have reported that it appeared they were moved by that. So
well, that's what D.L. Hughley was basically saying. Hughley
right.
was basically saying that this is, this is America.
Well,
or the America that we would prefer not to have.
And again, I'll just defer a couple of things that I think we have to keep in mind. We can't forget. No matter what, he killed some people, right?
Absolutely.
And whether he's found guilty or not, he killed some people. But the right has made him a martyr and a cause celeb. That's number one. Number two, he will make money on this trial no matter what happens. Veg, I think, I like to look at it that way. It comes across that way, certainly. But it's just, again, I'm kind of almost speechless about that. Was just poor. Whoever told him to do that, it was just a bad acting performance.
Absolutely.
So we got money coming in. We've got him being a hero. And I'd like to hear Mr. Kyle explain why he was in a bar giving, Aryan hate signs, other signs with the boys. I'd love to understand why his mother walked in to a GOP women's conference and got a standing ovation. Well, why is because what you're looking at is the modern Republican Party. That's all.
I want to ask.
That's
Mark
the junior
this.
version. That's the junior version.
Mark, because Dave's obviously presented a very strong point about this Rittenhouse and these faux tears and whatnot, but isn't there perhaps a greater danger? What do you feel about the idea of what happens if Rittenhouse gets off and now every time there's some type of protest, these people feel they can just take their AR-15 and go at somebody if there's a fire? I mean, I that's just my opinion. What do you think about that?
It's a very dangerous, I wouldn't say precedent, because it's happened in the country many times before. But you have the issue of, even in certain states where you have open and carry, where you can walk around like the Wild West, where you have your gun with you all the time. In this case, this individual actually went to an area to, if you will, create a confrontation. Why was he there in the first place? Right? So he's the one who precipitated the situation that ended up horribly. And as I see it, I don't think the other individuals, those who died or who were around him, were armed. So how could he feel as threatened as he claims to have felt? Since he was carrying, I would say, a weapon of mass murder.
Quite under control when he was walking down those streets.
Exactly.
But of course, some of this couldn't come out in the trial itself. Like the fact that he went from 2 states and why was he there. But it seems like, it was within the construct of the judge. And I think it made it difficult for the...
You also have it, I think it's in Florida, where they have stand your ground, that kind of principle, which basically would say, all right, if you feel threatened, you can defend yourself. and you can carry your gun to do that. And therefore, that's sort of what Rittenhouse is arguing here, isn't he?
Right.
He was protecting himself. He was threatened, even though he was really
I think one
the one
had
who
a gun,
precipitated this.
but he didn't shoot. Didn't one have a gun? I'm not so sure. But he said he felt threatened from somebody coming at him.
Okay, can I jump in there for a minute, Brian?
Sure.
Why didn't he think he might be threatened when he's on the other side? Now,
Right.
This is a bad analogy, but if you're going to do what he did, it's like wearing a Dallas Cowboys gear, the Philadelphia Eagles game, a home game, when the winner wins the NFC East. Now, is it right? No. That that Dallas fans, he was asking, for trouble. And I still come back to, not that his mother should be tried in this particular trial. I had a mother, you had a mother, Mark had a mother, and Kyle has a mother. I don't think, I wouldn't have asked, but I can't imagine asking my mother, will you drive me to another state, not the state that you're in, and I'm going to take my gun here, Mom, and I'm going to go over there and help save Target. I don't know. How does that happen? I did want to respond. I think it was HLS, one of my favorite people on this thing, who said, I think something in the comments, Dave has a teleprompter in his eyelids and he's reading. No, HLS, you have caught something. You know how I feel about a certain woman who I feel strongly about, and her name is Stormy Daniels, an anti-Trumper. And what I do have inside my eyelids are tattoos of Stormy. So that you did catch me with that, not teleprompter.
Okay, well, let's take a little peek at his mother, because it's been said that she was the one who's encouraged him to be the person he is. I believe he's homeschooled, so that it seems to me that he's influenced by his parents, and I'm thinking that she is a block off the old chip. Let's take a look at her. And this may take a few seconds, but this is from Fox. So let's check her out. She's a real winner.
In the case, will issue a ruling today on exactly what charges he will allow to be considered.
The move potentially opening the door for lesser charges against Rittenhouse as jury members prepare their deliberations.
It was an emotional week for the trial, including a very tearful testimony by the defendant himself. And through it all, standing by his side is his mother, Wendy Rittenhouse. Wendy, welcome to Fox and Friends. As a mom, I can't imagine being in your shoes, watching your son having this very emotional moment where his life is really on the line right there. How are you holding up?
Thank you for having me. I'm holding up the best I can. We're staying strong for Kyle. It was a very difficult day for our family and him, and we're getting through it.
And Wendy, are you throughout the trial, are you having an opportunity to speak to Kyle and get a sense of how he's holding up?
He's a very strong young man, and he has a lot of sport behind him, and he's doing good.
Wendy, I think watching this week, many who have followed trials and were a little surprised to see Kyle took the stand. It's not common for a criminal defense defendant to take the stand. Mm-hmm. Often they choose not to testify. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Why did Kyle decide to do that? Why did he want to get up there and tell his story?
He wanted to take the stand, and he wanted to tell what happened to him that night. And I didn't know that he was going to take the stand till that day. And I was scared, but Kyle did a wonderful job, and I couldn't be prouder of him.
All right, enough of that. Okay.
All right, I'm going to jump as a former reporter, okay? We know what Fox is. We know what they do. There's only two questions to ask the woman. Number one, Why did you let your son have a weapon of mass destruction far greater than anything we found in all those desert things, right? A gun that killed people. That's a weapon of mass destruction if you kill more than one, in my estimation. And how do you justify, back to the same question, ma'am, and I'm going to ask it nicely, ma'am, how do you justify driving your son across state lines with that gun, which you had to know he had? And then to Kyle, I would have asked him a question. If I were a reporter and not a lawyer, I would have said this. You had a gun in your hand. What were you going to do with that gun? What were you going to do with that gun? Don't you think, Kyle, whatever you answered, don't you think that you have a gun? You put a target on your back too. But instead, you claim you have one. I didn't see any shots fired at you, yet you fired. And then a third question, which will not come up in the trial, is you seem to be very upset on that stand, right? How come you were laughing and smiling earlier before you did it and after with the police officers? Which is the truth, Mr. Rittenhouse? Is it the way you feel now and the way you demonstrate you feel now? Or was it the way you felt then? Because, Mr. Rittenhouse, quite simply, they're not the same. So I guess, Mr. Rittenhouse, what I will ask you, sir, which is the truth? That's all. Now, we will not get the truth with the judge. I would be surprised. I would be shocked. I would be astounded if the plea is, I'm sorry, the plea. If the verdict is wait, actually, you don't have an innocent there. It's not guilty. Same thing. It's just semantics.
But they all have to agree. It's just like,
the verdict is not guilty, there will, I would assume, certainly be an appeal. Of course, if the verdict is innocent, if the verdict is guilty, there will also be an appeal. So I think the case is going to be appealed. I would hope that the Bar Association will look into the behavior of the judge. And look, quite honestly, we all go in with preconception. I believe, I'll wait to hear all the testimony or wait until that. The party charge has the presumption of innocent until proven guilty. And nothing in that trial that I heard convinced me that the charges as filed are unworthy, not true. I think Kyle Rittenhouse went there, if not to intend to do what he did, fully prepared with a gun. If the events transpired in such a way, he used the gun and people died. End of story.
Mark?
Yeah, the issue there, though, it would be what exactly is he guilty of? Because I think he's being charged, again, I don't know the exact charges, but he's being charged with first-degree murder, which is he intended to kill people when he went there. But there were many other crimes that he committed that are obvious crimes. One is, I don't think he obtained the weapon legally. You might say that's, okay, a lot minor a crime as opposed to murder. As Dave said, he killed some people. That's usually called manslaughter. Now, if it's murder, it's first degree. But if it's not, manslaughter is still a felony, a serious crime, I would think. Taking someone's life is a serious
he would
crime.
have to spend over a year in jail at least if he were a felony, correct?
I'm not sure, but I thought it would be even longer than that. So there are so many crimes that were committed here. And again, I don't know. You could argue whether the prosecution presented the best case. Even the judge could criticize some of it, but not in the sense that he did, because he is prejudicing the jury by a lot of his actions as well, which is something you guys brought up. So, it's only a question of what do you convict him of? Now, that's in reality. Now, what's going to happen? Again, a lot of times you don't know. I could see this even becoming a mistrial, which the defense has already asked for. Let's have a mistrial and we don't retry because they want him to get off the hook completely.
Right. Now, we do have a clip. We want to get into the judge for a bit here, gentlemen, if you don't mind, because I think that's really going to be important because he's the one that seems to be putting his finger on the scales. So let's, I think we'll go to the scolding first, and then we can look at his ridiculous jokes second. All right. So let me go to the internet screen, and here we go.
Correct. So you understand that there's a difference between using deadly force to protect yourself and using it to protect property, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Richards? Your Honor, Mr. Binger is either forgetting the court's rulings or attempting to provoke a mistrial in this matter. He knows he can't go into this, and he's asking the questions. I asked the court to strongly admonish him, and the next time it happens, I'll be asking for a mistrial with prejudice. He's an experienced attorney, and he knows better.
Mr. Binger?
First of all, Your Honor, this was the subject of a motion. I'm well aware of that, and the court left the door open.
For me, not for you.
My understanding of
You should have come and asked for reconsideration. You did on the one motion, and in fact, I granted your motion for reconsideration.
That was not our motion.
Excuse me. I did. I granted.
We did not move
that
to
was
reconsider.
their motion.
We have not filed any
me.
motions to reconsider
Forgive
in this
me.
case.
That was their motion for reconsideration, which I denied. But I said I denied it, or I indicated a bias towards denial is what I did. Held it open with a bias towards denial. Why would you think that that made it okay for you, without any advance notice, to bring this matter before the jury? I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, well, I'll leave it at that. So I don't know what you're up to.
May I respond?
Yes.
We filed an other acts motion on this exact issue because, in my mind, and I argued this, it is identical to what was going on the night of August 25th, in the sense that the defendant was using this exact same weapon. He was using it in a manner to try and protect property.
No, he wasn't.
Your Honor, with all due respect,
I'm not going to rehash the motion. That's absolutely untrue. No. Your arguments of record, my comments are of record, and why I ruled as I did is of record. There's nothing that I heard in this trial to suggest anything's changed. Even if you're correct in your assumption that you know more than I did at the time, you should have come to the court and say, I want to go into this.
Brian, you don't have any sound.
Sorry about that. That's my
I don't think this is an episode we should submit for an Emmy. I really don't.
Well, hold on. Well, listen. This is for free, so nobody can complain. All right. So, as I wanted to say, and my apologies, I made a mistake. That can happen. The judge was corrected in the very beginning, and I don't think he appreciated that. So he already had his blood pressure going because it seems like he didn't like that. Because he was wrong. The judge was wrong in the beginning. And he admitted it. But then what bothered me was the judge got so loud. And I think in most of these types of courtrooms, the jury is sequestered, back to the right of the judge or wherever, but they can still hear what's going on.
Well,
and it seems like he was purposely, screaming so the jury could hear. There was no need for him to go at that volume.
Well, the first question, I don't know the answer, and maybe somebody's watching is, there are times, if you're going to argue emotions, when you do it to the exclusion of the jury. If that's the case, it was just a bad presentation, I think, by a judge who is actually of the belief, as some judges are, this is my courtroom, I am infallible, in this courtroom, I am much like the Pope is to the Catholic Church. I will run it, it will be my way, if the jury didn't hear it. If the jury was in there, my question to the judge would be this: if indeed calling dead people victims is inappropriate because it can prejudice a jury, do you not think that your screaming and hollering at an attorney for either side could prejudice the jury? So the key question first for me, and I don't have an answer if anybody knows this, was the jury in the courtroom? Who was that? Do you know, Brian? I don't. Or Mark?
I think they were not in the courtroom.
Okay.
But again, even if you're in a room nearby, you can hear. I mean, I remember being on a
Well, I'm not. We don't know where they were. My point is, it's still, to me, and then I would question the judge's ability. Remember, when Kavanaugh lost control?
Absolutely.
That was the moment when I made a decision. That man is not equipped to handle the stress and pressure of the Supreme Court. That judge, if that is indeed a reaction,
party,
I would question. Now, a couple other things we need to know. Do you know? And I do not. There is no such thing as a judge who does not have a political affiliation. There is no such thing. Do you know if he is a Republican or a Democrat? That would be another question we need to ask. Just again, because this country is so polarized, it does make a difference. The third, or the biggest question of all, is we don't know, because we're not legal scholars and we're not judges, is the behavior demonstrated on the part of that judge a reason to declare the verdict if indeed the anti-Kyle side is that reason enough to appeal?
I'm hoping that our audience can Google that for us.
This case is headed for appeal. Now, let's talk about that. Where does the final appeal for anything come? Or head, I don't mean come. Well, that's the Supreme Court. And if indeed, as some people have joked, it's a joke, if Kavanaugh and Rittenhouse went to the same acting school of crime, which it appeared that way, we don't know what will happen in any Supreme Court hearing, but certainly we do know the following: 6 judges on the conservative side, 3 on the liberal side. Most liberals feel that what Kyle Rittenhouse did, as Mark so eloquently pointed out before, if not first-degree murder, was certainly manslaughter, was some kind of crime was committed in which lives were lost. But apparently, I'm going to say apparently, the other side believes it was justified. First, they believe it's justified to carry a weapon, which I do not believe. I do not believe the Second Amendment allows you to do that. I do not. I would argue that with anyone. And it allows you, if you're carrying that weapon, as Mark pointed out, whether you have stand your ground or not in a state, it allows you to take someone's life because you feel you were threatened. And to both of you, and again, Mark, you're not familiar with this as much, but a lot of times I use Brian instead of not use both of you, just as a common person. So I'm not asking for any inside depth. My question, I always answer these questions myself. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt threatened? Of course I have. Brian, you?
Yes.
Mark?
Of course.
Now, have you ever been in a situation where if you had a gun, it might have turned out differently? See, that's what I think people miss this. We've all felt threatened, but if you don't have a gun, you can't shoot the other person. If you have a gun, it's in your mind, threatened. And that we're down that road. Kyle's mother, as long, just by the fact of allowing him to do it. Obviously, his father is supportive. Obviously, the thousands of dollars that have poured in from Republican coffers. And I'm not so sure the judge doesn't feel that, just based on what he does, that Kyle had a right to do what he did, no matter who died. That is a scary, scary, scary America. And anyone who thinks that we're not in scary times, and I think there are only a few fools who believe that, who aren't Trumpites, this trial should be a wake-up call. Because if this trial, if Kyle Rittenhouse is found innocent, I think you, Brian, said it earlier, and it's clear, it will be a green light for any of the right-wing, fascist, authoritarian, would-be killers. It will be open season on anyone they do not like.
Absolutely.
That's how important this trial is. So we'll see.
And you can see it coming, because already you saw the governor of Wisconsin decided that he's going to have 500 National Guard there.
Actually, the number as of tonight, and I think it will grow, was 300 as of tonight. 300 trained.
Right, but these Trumpers with their guns, the Kyle Rittenhouses, gentlemen, I would think that you would agree, aren't going to do much if the National Guard's there. They like an uneven fight. It's easy to pick on, Occupy Democrats or something like that who are unarmed and they might hit you with a pillow or something, but that's about it.
Right.
Yeah, that's what bothers me, because now they say, he did it, it sets a precedent, we can go after you.
Yes, that's the danger with all the weapons we have around. And you've seen it in other areas, such as militia-type groups occupying the Capitol in Michigan.
Right.
So, if you're carrying around weapons and you're forcing law enforcement or the National Guard, a quasi-military group, to be present everywhere, because you're thinking there's going to be violence all the time, and that's why you have the extreme right talking about a civil war.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, gentlemen, there is one way we can cut the echo. It would be difficult, but once you're done speaking and the next person speaks, not me, but either one of you turn off your mic for a second until you're ready to speak. That might alleviate.
No, I don't want to do that. I'm blaming you.
It makes it easier.
It does. Something Karen just put up something. I think. Could you put her comment up again,
Yes,
Brian?
absolutely.
I think it was a very astute kind of. No.
Before that? Okay.
I don't know where it came in. Right here. Leave that up. The Supreme Court is not impartial. That is clear. It has never been impartial, ever in the history of America. Okay? As it claims to be, and I agree. I've heard judges living here in Washington, Supreme Court justices, claiming, I'll use Anthony Scalia. He falsely claimed, although he believed it, that he was not informed by his Catholic religion. If you go back and look at every ruling he ever made, that could be, could have come from his religious background, it was made that way. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and the two of them were best friends. Hers was informed by the fact of her being Jewish and the fact of her being a woman and being born and living in a time when both of those made it impossible for her to become what she became, a Supreme Court justice. The last part, Brian, one more time up, because the last part was the one on Karen's. The last was what I thought was the most important.
You want Karen's in there again?
Again, one more, just for a moment. Sure. Now, no one should be in a position for life in the Supreme Court. And I just want to address that for a moment. We have to look at the Constitution in the terms and the times in which it was written. I might be off on this, so check me, but I believe the average age of a male at the time the Constitution went in was something around 34 to 36 years old. All right. So it doesn't mean that people didn't live much longer, but it meant that you probably weren't going to live into your 70s, 80s, or 90s. So when they appointed for life, they were saying, say you got it at 25, they thought the most you could do, is 20, 25 years. Today, the last three judges could serve on the Supreme Court easily for 4 to 5 decades, depending on when they go. So we have to look at this Constitution not as an immutable, unchangeable object, which is not what the founding fathers wanted nor intended. If you look at the prime mover, Thomas Jefferson, he said things among which, a little revolution is good, change is necessary. We do not, there's a great quote, as we do not intend to bind future generations to what we did. Some said things like, we needed to do this who were very astute, said we need to do this to bring the country together. So we see such things as electoral college. We see such thing as a government created in slave and free states, none of which exists today. And George Washington, on his deathbed, was treated with leeches, none of which we do today. And so we need to look at, is that viable? Now, who doesn't want it to change? The Supreme Court justices don't want it to change. And at the same time, in all honesty, we have to counterbalance it because people do live longer. I'll use my mother, for example. She was forced to retire at 70 because New Jersey had a must retire. She was a teacher, and she would have taught longer. But we're gonna have to look. We're really gonna have to look strongly. Should someone be on the Supreme Court, for example, who could grow up at a time when computers did not exist, which you could have been, and then they're everyday occurrences? There are scores of stories out of D.C. of older congressmen and senators, not Supreme Court, but who don't even know how to turn on a computer. Now, I think that's a skill you must have today. So there's that. I think Karen's point is very well taken. The question becomes, how do you enact it? How do you put it into process when you have, we have one vote and we'll never get a vote should the Supreme Court have term limits? I don't see that. It'll have to come from the government, and I don't know if they're in position that they want to do it.
The purpose of the life sentence, if you want to call that, for judges, why they could stay on the court that long, was for impartiality, so that they would only be able to be removed for egregious activities, not for their decisions. Do you need to have them serve for life? No. You could have, like you say, term limits, 15 years, something like that. The problem that David said so eloquently was, how do you reform the Constitution when we're in such a polarized environment? That's a very high bar.
And I would add to that obviously you are absolutely right, the impartial, but I really do question today on the liberal and conservative, how many of them are truly impartial? We love, right, if we are liberal, we love the liberal decisions, but it doesn't mean that they're impartial. I think, again, it is almost impossible, given the gravity of the decisions they have to make, to be impartial. And I know they say they are, and I do not believe it. And I said it as a reporter. I'm impartial. No, I tried to be. No human being can be completely impartial. So I mean, yes, that was it. But then on the other side, okay, the founding fathers, as far as I know, researching them, they were horrified with the idea of political parties and thought that maybe they had formed a government. It didn't, and that lasted until George Washington left. And by that point, you had the Federalists, and led by Hamilton and Adams, and you had the other side led by Jefferson and Thomas Paine and some of the. So it's around. I mean, I don't know what you do. Same thing applies. We can talk all day about term limits for congressmen, term limits for senators, and of course they will say, yes, we don't need term limits because we get voted out. Wow. I mean, it's so hard, and all this comes down to not wait what the Supreme Court said is money. It's hard to beat an incumbent. A good incumbent, a bad incumbent. So saying the people can beat it just doesn't happen often. It just, especially at the Senate and a congressional level. It happens more often at state, county, and local governments. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to show that very last clip, and we'll finish out with the material with Rittenhouse, because it's tough as it is just to keep talking about him because.
Well, I'm not going to say it's not tough. I'm saying right now, it is okay. It is the George Floyd moment. I really believe this for the other side, right? In other words, you cannot underplay what happened to George Floyd. I mean, you just can't. And Brian, I give you all the kudos. You were the first person, and now everybody say, not you were the first person, the first person to articulate to me, because you remember my question to you. Why is this the one? And you just said very simply, everybody's home watching.
Everybody was watching because it was COVID.
Now, this is unfortunately, not everybody can watch this, but I think this is as important. How we react and what happens from this is as important to the future of America as what happened to the police officers charged in the George Floyd murder. That's right, murder.
Right. Right. Okay. So this will be just a very, very short clip, gentlemen. But let's look at the judge's joke, as they put it.
Anything else?
What's that you want to say?
Let's hope for 1 o'clock. I don't know. Hope the Asian food isn't coming. Isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor. But let's aim for 1 o'clock.
All right. So
can I ask a question?
You're good.
What the hell was he thinking? That is not funny. It's not appropriate. It's not good. It's not the worst thing that's said. But in a time when you have to guard, unfortunately, everything you say, and he knows the cameras are on. So there's only, again, that either shows a lack of his competency or the fact that he's one of them. What other alternative?
Right? Gentlemen, does it remind you of like Southern judges? Jim Crow judges. It just seems to me that this is. I mean, although it's happening in the North, but Wisconsin seems to be a strange state anyway these days. How things are turning out. That state looks like it could go up in flames. Just like Michigan. But it seems to me, actually right there, I'm just going to post this now. I mean, it's simple. I mean, a lot of times when we try to convince people or to discuss something that's heated, we keep it simple. Like Fox keeps things simple. Democrats want to kill babies, or Democrats want to do this. And sometimes we can go deeper, but it doesn't pick up. But at the bottom level, at the basement, I think Veg is basically saying this guy's nuts. This guy is nuts. There's no reason to have said what he said. There's no reason for him to go off like he did. There's no reason for him to say that you can't call these people victims. This guy, if anybody was the 13th juror or the 12th, 13th bagel or whatever, he's and that's not a joke. That's just
right.
A baker's dozen or whatever. Yeah, I mean.
Well, I'm not gonna. I mean, Veg is pretty smart, so I'm not arguing with Veg. He has a point. I would think if he isn't batshit crazy, he certainly is one of those judges that has lost the ability to understand that even he thinks he is God in that courtroom, and he's not. And I've run across many judges over the years that in that little room, they really feel, I use the Pope analogy, but I think it's very appropriate. They really feel that whatever they do is infallible. And the best judges I've ever run across as a reporter are those who don't feel that way, who realize that they're human, who realize they can make mistakes. This is a name no one else knows. Nobody on this show would ever know. And I know. The best judge I ever saw was a judge in New Jersey, Steve Kleiner. He was the best attorney who became a judge, and he did not play conservatively in terms of rulings. He made law when it was necessary, and he's the only judge in my roughly a dozen years in newspapers, who did not have not one decision overturned. So I'd love to see, and that's something that's available. It's, if I were a reporter, I'd also look to see how many cases from this judge, how many petitions, for a new trial, how many appeals have been upheld, because that is an indicator. That is an indicator of how good a judge is. Very few get Kleiners, none. But as you start mounting those up, it means that you don't run a good courtroom. And I don't think he's run a good courtroom. But legally, I don't know. We'd have to wait and see. Mark, what do you think?
I think we had a discussion just before of impartiality, and this judge, certainly in this case, didn't demonstrate any attempt at impartiality. I mean, it just seems quite obvious that he was siding with the defense in many cases, and you've pointed it out. Besides not calling the victims of this incident victims, as well as berating the prosecution, whether the jury was there or not, or heard it or not.
And the other thing is, for anybody who hasn't covered trials, which is probably more of our listeners than have, yes, I mean, I know this as fact. A jury can be sequestered, right? I don't know if this one is. A jury can be told, don't read any newspapers. But trust me, there are ways to get messages to jurors. You don't have to hand them the newspaper. So there are people who probably would tell them, or maybe have told them, if it was out of the presence, again, spinning it their way. Now, I'd like to move on to my least favorite person of the week, who may or may not be in some trouble, and that would be Mr. Steve Bannon. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've all been saying, Justice Department, Merrick Garland, somebody do something. And, it took a little while, but we get, at least, we get a Steve Bannon, you're not above the law. Now, we don't know what will happen to that. I still think they waited too long to satisfy people. There's still a lot of people that really don't understand.
Do you think the pressure helped?
No.
Or he was going to do it the way he did it?
I can't say that. I don't know. What I think is what I've said all along. I think that the Justice Department is making a mistake. In normal times, you want to make sure you nail the president. You want to make sure you have an airtight case to nail the president's men. But these are not normal times. These are not normal times. I'm sure there are discussions, believe it or not, at high levels of justice and in the White House. Well, if we do this, will Bannon become a martyr? So would it be better? I mean, at this point, though, there are two things that have to be done, and that's charge the people. And I don't think the Justice Department has done a stellar job of charging those who were not tourists, despite anything, who are insurgents, terrorists, whatever you want to call them, bent on overturning America. They were treasonous acts. They should be treated as that. And house arrest, I don't think really qualifies for that. And I point out, and I will continue to point out, that I've never in my lifetime seen 4 different judges in the same case question the prosecution for bringing charges that did not reflect the severity of the crime. So I'm not going to jump on the Justice Department. Oh, attaboy, you did good. I'm glad they did what they did. I'll feel a lot better. And we don't know what Bannon will do. Could he now say, okay, I ran the string as long as I could. Now I will go testify. Just because he's called to testify doesn't mean he's going to tell the truth. But that stage is at least there. And I think, again, it also bodes well for Trump's false claim of executive privilege applying forever. And it doesn't matter how you spin it, interpret it, or look at it. Steve Bannon, when January 6th came, was not employed by the White House. And if we get to that point where executive privilege extends over a new crime, past a crime when you were employed, yeah, then we're even more trouble. So I'm glad on the one hand that he was, but we still have to wait and see, the proverbial what happens next. That's Bannon's take, or my take on Bannon.
Well, you mentioned, Dave, recently that you said that the question would be, are they going to start running the table? Because there are others. And do you think they're going to just stop at the one and say, this should be enough to intimidate?
Mark and I, as we were marching around this wonderful Capitol today with his wife, Sue, and my wife, Judy, and, checking out a few things. He said something, Mark, that what I thought was kind of telling about this. Do you remember what that was? The idea of, your thoughts on Bannon. I don't know if you remember him exactly, but I thought your thoughts were very good about the idea. And when Brian just said, remember you talked about running out the clock, the president and everybody. I think that's an important view that we need to consider. Do you remember?
Well, there are two things. First of all, I think this is the same issue as the Rittenhouse case, where if he is not in contempt, then you're going to encourage everyone not to cooperate at any level with any kind of inquiry. The executive privilege doesn't apply to anyone committing crimes. The executive privilege is supposed to be regarding policy discussions that are internal that you have to keep private because otherwise you can't engage in a lot of activity in terms of decision making. It has nothing to do with whether he was employed or not by the president, because what they're talking about here is criminal activity. So you don't have the protection for that. In terms of running out the clock, it's simply next year there's a chance that control of Congress may change, whether it's the House or the Senate or both. And so the idea here is they want to postpone everything as long as possible, because if they can get it past, what is it now, just another year, a little over a year, 13 months, then they can end the inquiry.
Right, just like Trump.
Without doing anything.
And the other issue, which...
And it's effective. I mean, look, it's been very effective for Trump his entire career. So why not do this at the political level?
I don't know. I'm going to use a sports thing here, date myself a little bit. North Carolina University has had some great basketball teams, right? But one of the things that they didn't invent, but they perfected, it was called the four corners. And basically, it was a run-out clock. You have a 3-point lead, a 1-point lead, whatever. And back then, there was no shot clock, so you could hold it as long, and you made the defense come out, and probably they would foul you. And it made for championship teams. I really don't want Trump and the Trumpublicans and the deplorables, which I'm going to call them all the time now, just because Hillary suffered from that, and she was 100% right. The deplorables to win, because guess what? What surprised the country? And certainly, I don't want them to win by running out the clock, and I think Mark is 100% right with that. Brian, you said it's what he's done all along.
And he has certain advantages. I mean, we've talked about gerrymandering at the congressional level, but essentially there's more gerrymandering at the Senate level because of the way that, things are set up, where you have 2 senators from South Dakota and 2 from North. I mean, already the representation is all on their side. So they've got all these advantages, whether it's the governors, it's the Congress, it's just everywhere they have advantages. So like my wife said, you just feel like, 2022 is going to come along. They're going to run the clock and they're going to win this thing. And we're going to have to deal with it.
Yogi Berra, maybe it was a sports night tonight, I don't know. Yogi Berra, the great baseball philosopher, said it ain't over till it's over. And that's true in baseball or anything in life. But right now, the signs are not encouraging. We talked a little bit earlier about a possibility, and there are numerous ways to reform the Supreme Court. There's a proposal out there that I really, really, really like for the Senate. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's much better than what we have now. So you have 50 states, everybody gets one senator, and then after that, they're apportioned by size. So Delaware would get one senator. It's a small state. The Dakotas would get one senator.
And the Republicans won't go for that.
What?
Nor the Republicans won't go for that.
Of course
Every idea that we have is great, but it won't happen.
Of course, and that's my point. Of course, I said I liked it. I didn't say anybody was going to put it in. And I mean, well, Brian, to your point, do you see, unless the unforeseeable happens, do you ever see Idaho having a Democratic senator?
Not unless the demographics change within the state.
And that's what I'm saying. Or do you see, look, we talk about, Mr. Manchin. He is a Democrat. They talk about the rhinos, and I hate this because it sounds like Trump, but he's a Democrat in name only. And there was a time when I would have said, I don't care. He's blocking the things. If we don't get a Voting Rights Act that allows people to vote with 113 laws out there, and not just, I don't even care if they don't allow Democrats to vote in Idaho. I don't care, but I do care very much that we're seeing Pennsylvania, Michigan, Florida, places that could be battlegrounds, Georgia, Texas. So now you line it up. You make it difficult to vote. If you do win, there's no longer going to be, election officials. It's going to be controlled or decided by the State House. If the State House is Republican, if you get by that, the appeals court, and you have a Republican Supreme Court. Trouble, kids, trouble.
Right. Well, that's my point that I've been making. Is just they have locked themselves into victories, and whether it's by bleeding out the clock or this gerrymandering, from top to bottom. I don't see how we can get out of it, especially when the president of the United States right now, as far as I know, he said something to the effect recently that he feels that we can come together as a country.
Look,
that is one of the most ridiculous comments.
No, that's old school. There was a time, even though I'm the one who says all the time we were never united, that is what you said. It's what you might even try to work for. No, that is not the case.
Well,
now.
How do you, Dave and Mark, how can you continually play a fair game and continually lose? How can you do that? There's no way.
Brian, I just want to argue with you for a minute. We did not lose the last election, and the next election has not been held. Now,
all you have to do is lose once.
Are the signs bad? Yes. Blue Virginia is no longer blue, right? And as I pointed out, I am more concerned about your state, or my former state, than I am about Virginia. Having said that, though, we can't say...
I'm worried about my own neighborhood here.
I understand
my doors.
You're the one that chose to live in West Virginia North, and so did I.
Yes. And you left. My only liberal left, and he leaves.
You can leave, too.
Nice
and come
guy.
down here where we don't have... No. How do I say this? Today, we went to my favorite, and I really do like the African American History Museum, but it's still not my favorite. My favorite is and will probably always be American history, just because that's the one I like, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. And, we were just picking, I've been through all the exhibits, but I went through again today the one about America and its wars. And again, I think this bears repeating. This myth of the United States of America has never existed. I'd say we've always been in, except with the Civil War, where it was a little bit more, the numbers were a little bit higher. We've been a country of roughly a third, and a third. Today, in the American history, based on what they've said, 40% of the colonists, roughly about 40%, wanted to form a new country. But they were able to do that. Today, we have about 40% who want to destroy the country we have. Well, if you can create a country with 40%, you can certainly destroy a country with 40%.
Right, but for example, Mark, you're in the financial world. It seems to me, with a person like Trump, whose academic level is really below the bar, that all of this, whether it's January 6th or with the federal court system, it seems to me there's something behind Trump that's pushing this. Whether it was the Koch brothers or whoever, but it seems to me I'm going to call it a cabal, but it seems to me there has to be some money behind this, and it has to be because they felt that this country was browning and that they were never going to be able to take the presidency unless they were going to cheat, and they had to do something like this. That's just my opinion. But do you think there's anything behind something like that? Or do you think that Trump's intelligent enough to just, I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll do that and I'll win?
Well, I think there are obviously special interests which the founding fathers were always concerned about. It wasn't just what they called factions, which were the political parties. The whole idea was you'd have enough special interests on different sides so they would cancel each other out. But that's if you have a level playing field. To me, the greatest concern is that we have a two-party system where the two parties are not both fighting the same way. So we have one party that, as you said, is trying to suppress the vote because they look at it, the demographics, and they say, okay, the people we want to appeal to is a shrinking group of people, and we don't want to be the party of the big tent, which is what the system was designed to have, with all of the special interests and all of the people represented by both parties. We're going to take the system and use it to our benefit. Now, on the Democratic side of the party, the Democratic Party, they're not playing by the same rules. Why are they not playing by the same rules? That's a good question, but you go back to the one main one. You talked about voting rights. How can we get a voting rights bill passed in Congress? You have to eliminate the filibuster. Can you eliminate the filibuster? Yes, but it would take simply the entire party to vote for it in the Senate, the 50 votes plus the vice president. If you eliminated the filibuster, then you could pass voting rights legislation. That's not being considered by the Democratic Party. By part of the Democratic Party, yes, but the entire party won't do that. If it was a Republican Party, they would do it in an instant. You also see the case where the Democratic Party, which is a true national party, the Big Tent Party, encouraging everyone to participate and be part of it, is a lot different than the Republican Party. In the Republican Party, you had a so-called bipartisan infrastructure bill that you now had some Republicans vote for in the House. And what is the party talking about? They're talking about purging everyone from the party. Do we do it on our side? Same thing. If you make a comment like, well, Senator Manchin is not really a Democrat, and you have the Republicans trying to encourage Sinema and Manchin, oh, you're really Republicans, you should join us. You have the same situation where the two parties are totally separate. And then you have a situation that was mentioned. You have states that are really not two-party systems. They're one-party government. We have Democratic states and Republican states, and you have only a few states in the middle. The gerrymandering makes it even worse because now you have situations where you don't have really competitive elections anymore. Over 90% of the Congress is one-party system. And you could be there forever. Now, in that kind of environment, you're not going to have the kinds of change that you need to have because you're not going to be voting anyone out of office.
Right.
I'd like to pick up on something Mark just said, not in the direct way he said it. But I'll tell you, there are many reasons why I'm liberal. But I'm going to tell you a reason why I think it's much more important to be liberal. Two reasons, two main reasons why it's much more important to be liberal in the 21st century than it's ever been before. One is, and Mark said that, the all-inclusive big tent party. Well, take the party out of it. America is much, much different than it's ever been before in terms of religion or in terms of not religion, right? The largest group right now polled is those who claim no religious affiliation. Of course, that would include agnostics, atheists, a whole group of things. The changes, I mean, just think, everyone out there, whoever hears this, things change so much more rapidly than they did at any other time in the world, in almost every field. And basically, the conservatives, at best, want to freeze time. At worst, want to go back to a time that shouldn't have existed, but did. And you can't do that and not be successful. And Mark said something that I think is so important, which is along those same lines. You cannot, I'll put it in a little different words the way I see it. In the modern age, you cannot stand still. You must follow the progress that happens, whether you're there or not. And I think I have a little different definition today of a progressive. Again, I think some of the definitions are changing. A progressive is just someone that looks in the world and says, I can't be the way I was yesterday or a year ago or 5 years ago or the way I wanted to be. I have to do this. Anthony said something earlier. Now I lost the train of thought that I thought was good. Is that it? That isn't it. But let's look at that. Okay. Now, this is not Anthony's intent when he posted it, but I live in Virginia, and Mark would be much more tuned in business to talk about this, or perhaps you would, Brian. But there's a problem with computers. They're wonderful. They're great, but they can be hacked. The best computers are up every day against the best hackers. And if you vote by computer, there's a lot of bad things that can happen. I think not because I live here, but in Arlington, I think they've come up with a good solution. You vote on paper, you put it into a scanner, the scanner then records it, and they keep the paper ballot. So even if you could, which nobody's going to tamper really with a scanner, you still have that. If you do the electronic ballot, it's for ease, right? It's much quicker to count. But I think, so there's a time, so I'm not saying, there's a time where what we did before, combined with the technology we have now, it's better to go back that way. But to try to go back, now the last person that I want to talk about tonight, Brian, is your secret man crush, Mr. Paul. It's Paul Gosar, right?
Gosar?
Gosar. Now, I have a question just for everybody.
What a lunatic that man is. We're talking about, batshit crazy. He is batshit crazy.
Here, forget all that. What he did to have an anime version of him killing AOC, I defy anybody to say in any business, unless you were the CEO and owned it, that you would not be summarily dismissed.
Right.
That goes beyond, that doesn't have anything to do with politics.
100%.
And we may have to, and again, Mark's absolutely right, I know how you do it. Congress is so bad at policing itself, but that's the way it was set up, as Mark said, with Supreme Court justices not being able to be removed willy-nilly and this kind of thing. But if they will not say, at least censor him, take him off every committee, I think he should be summarily dismissed and sent out of Congress for what he did. I don't care whether you like AOC. I don't care if you think men have the right. That is, to me, beneath the dignity of a human being to do that. So I will really be following that with interest, because I think, again, you've got the Kyle Rittenhouse, the Steve Bannon case, you've got Donald Trump in the wings, you've got Gosar, you've got, we're not going to talk tonight about it. I think I'll talk about it a little bit because I've been there. I might even do a remote from there, maybe next week, Brian, depending on what I do, from the Willard Hotel, where we now know with absolute certainty
that's perfect.
people from the White House and people from the street and people from conservative groups and people from Congress met in what they determined to be a war room to figure out how they were going to overturn the vote of the American people.
By the way, that's this is the one thing when I'm not joking either. Every time I get really angry about Republicans, this comes up in my head. This movie, you should all remember that. Do you remember that?
If I'd understood it, what movie was it?
Let me see if I can throw this out there. You would remember that, and only because you mentioned the hotel. Hold on.
That's Terrence Stamp, right?
That was Tear 'Em Up from the movie Willard. You mentioned the Willard Hotel.
Well, you know what? I again tonight I'll say it would be nice. It would be nice if you want to remake Willard. I would suggest instead of using the rats, right, that were used in Willard, just use any Republican voters. I mean, I know 3 of them out there in the country that was a snide comment that they didn't deserve. But again, I call it the Liz Cheney thing. Yes, what Liz Cheney is doing is very brave in her party, but let's not forget that before she decided to do what she's doing now, she had the most conservative voting record in all of Congress. So,
but still, she did what she did.
It's pretty hard as a liberal for me to say, well, she's mine. And it also shows the absolute insanity of claiming that the Republicans in any way have a party or an idea or any way related to the Republican Party of the past, because the person who should be Miss America of Congress is being shunned by her own party. So, you know, what the hell? I mean, what the hell? Before we go off, I want to thank Mark. Now, for doing this, we've asked him, and it just worked out. Mark, however, there is a danger for doing everything. I know your wife was very worried about your appearance. I went out there. She and Judy are watching a movie in the other room. That's why I'm in the bathroom, because I can't use the computers out there. And I said, you were doing great. You don't need my acknowledgement of doing great, but I think you were a tremendous asset. And so what I'm going to ask you to do first is to give up all your Saturday nights for the rest of your life, even though you have things to do that are important, to join Brian and I, who have no friends. Well, you are my friend. So then I'll have the only 2 friends in the world who do anything with me on Saturday night together. But in all seriousness, thank you for doing it.
Absolutely.
What I liked, Mark, and again, it's not some kumbaya thing. I mean, Brian is the pessimist hothead, and we need that. I'm the jokester. But what I really like tonight is you are just the straight. You struck me tonight as
just a reasonable voice.
I'm saying you struck me tonight as an older Pete Buttigieg in this respect. Serious, knowing what you're doing, saying what you said, and I think putting things in perspective. So I do hope you will join us.
And I hope everybody will share this video so that other people can see this show, and especially see Mark.
It showed what it showed tonight, Brian, actually, is Mark's brilliance and your total incompetency to do anything.
Like I said, this thing's free.
I'm in the bathroom because of you. You just, like I said, you're just not that good.
I don't have any echo on my voice right now. I'm fine.
Well, you're controlling it.
No,
well, I had
I'm
a great
not.
time, guys.
Thank you, Mark. We do this all the time, Mark. It's all in jest.
Listening. I'm sure you won't, because you're a gentleman, but I didn't think Brian could be worse than he was as your teacher in Cherry Hill. And I think this proves that when you're on a downslide, as he has been, there's no bottom to how low you can go.
You know, Mark, when we've done the show, Dave usually comes on. You know, we always joke. We've been doing this to each other for years, and but we're good friends, so we.
Speak for yourself, Brian.
All right,
all
right.
You put me in the bathroom
Look,
tonight.
when I visit, the price.
I actually went to the bathroom, but only when you were talking. I listened to Mark. Okay. It's great to pee while you're talking. It's a wonderful relief.
Yeah, this guy, tell you what kind of guy he is. Judy says, "Would you like a cookie?" And she, after our lunch, she said, "Would you like a cookie?" I said, "Sure." So Dave goes to the cookie jar and he gets an entire bag of cookies and he throws them in front of me. He says, "Eat them all." Okay. So, this is what he does. But no, we joke all the time. Dave and I have been great friends for years, and I guess we just commiserate, and I think the humor thing is just part of the thing here, and everybody has come to know this. But we have a great, I would guess, a coterie of people here who are more or less like-minded.
You used a bit coterie. You know what that means?
Yeah, it's like a small group, right?
I don't know. I'm asking.
Well, a small group. It's a coterie.
Damn.
Well, I mean, isn't it easier to use one word than two? So coterie. So, but I'm just saying, this is a small group of people. It is shared, and we are getting more and more people watching. And please, when you do share it, please ask people to subscribe. We don't ask for anything. This is not monetized.
Brian,
YouTube
I'm
certainly
sorry.
doesn't like us.
I always interrupt you at this point. I'm sorry. I forgot to do the commercial that I pledged tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I have in front of me Donald Trump endorsed. It's a product he endorses. This is Preparation H. Let me turn it right away. And so Donald Trump uses this for his hemorrhoids. The problem is that times he's been
anything on the show,
and he's put it in his mouth. This whole tube in his mouth. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I would recommend you use this. It is endorsed by Donald Trump.
Don't share it, though, okay? It's only to be used by one person.
I thought you said you hadn't monetized the place, so you're advertising.
That's him, okay?
I talked.
He's going to lose sales for, I don't know, Johnson & Johnson? I don't know.
To the other way, in case you're interested. I mean, it goes both ways. I don't know if Donald Trump goes both ways, but this tube, you can even have it upside down if you want. I mean, this is a wonderful tube.
Well, I'm sure, that's a very successful product. I mean, I don't want to speak from personal experience, but it's a wonderful product when you're in trouble, I guess. So, yeah. But Mark, yes, we really do appreciate it. And you have an open mic anytime you want to come on. It would be fantastic. We're all kind of different on this show, but in the end, I think all roads lead to Rome, and where we get where we need to be.
Brian, did you mention about this wonderful product that I've discovered? Look,
hold on. I've got to get you on a larger screen for this, Dave. Hold on.
I'm Preparation H. I'm like a superhero. You can do wonderful things with this, really. You can.
Are you speaking from experience?
Do I use preparation? I use enough now. But let me point out.
You seem to have it there.
Also, you wanted to do this. I wasn't going to do it. This is actually generic Viagra. Now, this is sildenafil, and this is also officially endorsed by the president.
Well, that's a true comedian. He actually has the guts. You are. You put that right up there.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is endorsed by Donald Trump. Now, it's really interesting. What he does sometimes is he crushes this up. This is true. Absolutely true. I never lie. He crushes this up and mixes it with Preparation H and inserts it anally, which I haven't done. But I would suggest that many of our viewers tonight, if you want to be like Donald Trump, did I mention this? Preparation H, get generic or real Viagra or Cialis. The problem with Cialis, Trump does not like it because he doesn't want to buy the 2 bathtubs you need when you take Cialis. Put them together and try it. Look, talked about it's not that weird. He talked about using Invectin, and
I didn't realize it was going to go this way.
Preparation.
It's way past his bedtime.
And by the way, you don't use that stuff unless you actually need it, okay? Because both would be a problem.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just Trump asked me to do it, so I did it.
If you're under 18 and watching this show, don't watch again, okay?
No, if you're under 18, there is Preparation H Junior.
Now, this guy's he is a modern day Lenny Bruce, Jesus Christ. Now, that is a mistake that I made.
Do not, ladies and gentlemen, tear up your tube of Preparation H.
Whatever happened to that guy on that movie, Willard? That was... What the hell's
I think he was eaten by rats or joined the Republican Party. I'm not sure which.
something like that. Something like that. So okay, I'm going to try to close that out. All right, so I don't know. Dave hasn't done a little. Yeah.
What haven't I done, Trev? Trev, there's some of my personal favorites right in a row there. HLS, Trev, Gary, Joey, who doesn't really do much. I mean,
Veg is here.
We joke. Look, we have fun. You have to have fun. These are serious times. It's not gallows. You have to have fun. But again, I would be remiss not to thank every single person who gives up a portion of their Saturday night to spend with us. And Brian, you said, and I think it is. For me, I can't speak for anyone else. It is therapy.
There is a cathartic effect of the show to commiserate.
And what I'm going to do immediately after this show is not take Preparation H. Well, I can't say about this, really. I don't know what happened. But anyway, thank you, people, for listening.
I was wondering, Dave, if you took the whole bottle of that in one shot, what would happen? Would your blood come out of your ears?
Are you talking about the whole? This is not.
No, not that. That's.
What are you talking about? Oh, Bob. I'm sorry. We're
the boner medicine.
Trump is endorsing.
I would take as directed. I wouldn't take the whole thing.
Now, this is also a Trump endorsed product.
Because I think if you took the whole thing, it would be a little bit of overkill, if you know what I mean.
I would say overdose.
Yeah.
All right, you're interrupting. Pretty feet and hands exfoliant, rough skin remover. This is officially endorsed by Donald Trump. It's available at all buildings that have his name on it.
All right.
Would you be serious? This is serious shit we do.
We're talking about our co-host's health, folks. Come on, get serious.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine what I was like when I was a drug addict and alcohol?
You know, I'd love to show your picture from the jail. I can't. I don't know. I don't have it. You know what? Maybe next
Brian,
week.
wait a minute. Brian, you're talking. Wait a minute. I got to pee again. Hold on. I mean, don't hold on. Just talking.
Well, you're right there. You don't have to go anywhere.
Well, I know. See, I'm standing up now. I'm moving over.
Okay.
Here, right here.
Oh no. No.
No. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has called me and said if I'm really good, I should sell this right here. This is where
oh God.
Went, and so I'll sell anything.
You don't have to urinate. Come
right,
on.
I'm sorry.
You really don't. What? You don't have to urinate. You don't have to urinate. I'm serious.
Not in public.
I would never do
He's
that.
joking, folks. He's not. I said he's joking.
No, I'm not. You challenge me. Oh no. Will you end this damn fiasco?
Okay. We've been off the air for the last 30 minutes, Dave. You're safe.
I'm out of here.
All right. Mark, thank you so much. And Jesus Christ, this Whitler, tear him up. All right, we are going to leave you folks with that. Let me see if I can get some type of movie for all of us. All right, let's see.